March 15, 2024, a decision was made. A mother boarded a flight to luxury, and a helpless child was left behind, alone. 6 days passed. The world moved on. Glasses clinked, music thumped, money flowed. Laughter echoed over turquoise waters, and the party never stopped. But behind a locked door, something unthinkable was happening. Something no one could see, no one could imagine. How cold must a mother be to walk away like that? To wake up each morning. Day 1, day 2, day 3, drinking, shopping, dancing, without a single thought for her baby? She had choices, family, friends, a safe place. But instead, she locked the door and never looked back. I can't begin to fathom the agony that child endured. Crying, starving, waiting for a mother who would never return. She could have made a different choice. But she didn't. And by the time someone finally knocked on that door, it was too late. What makes a mother abandon her child? Is it selfishness, desperation, or something even darker? Before the flight, before the partying, before she walked away, we have to go back to where it all started. Her name was Monique Caldwell, 32 years old, a woman addicted to the fast life. Attention, luxury, thrill, that was her oxygen. Born and raised in New Orleans, her childhood was anything but stable. Her mother battled demons of her own, in and out of prison, leaving Monique to be tossed from one foster home to another. Different houses, different faces, never a real family, never real love. She learned early that attention was power. If she couldn't be loved for who she was, then she'd make sure she was noticed for what she had. In high school, she was the girl who always knew the latest trends, the one who could talk her way into VIP sections even when her pockets were empty. College was a passing thought. She enrolled, but the structure, the routine, the grind, it wasn't for her. She wanted fast money, easy money, influencer money. She spent hours watching Instagram models draped in designer brands, flying first class, popping bottles in clubs. None of them looked like they worked a real job. If they could do it, why couldn't she? She dropped out. Relationships crumbled. She followed men who promised her the world but delivered nothing. Stability, work, that wasn't part of her vision. Then, something unexpected happened. She got pregnant. The father. A man she had no plans of being tied to. A fling. A fleeting decision. And now, a consequence she never wanted. She had options. She thought about them. But a part of her believed maybe this was her chance to finally have someone who loved her unconditionally. That feeling didn't last. When her daughter Ariana was born, reality hit hard. Sleepless nights, endless crying, the weight of responsibility. Motherhood wasn't glamorous. It wasn't cute outfits and picture-perfect moments. It was exhaustion, sacrifice, a burden. She loved Ariana, but she resented her too. Because with every diaper changed, every night spent rocking a crying baby instead of dancing under neon lights, Monique felt trapped. The women she admired online, the ones flaunting their perfect, carefree lives, none of them had a child holding them back. She started looking for an escape. At first, it was small, leaving Ariana with neighbors for a night out, dropping her off with a distant friend for a weekend trip. But soon, that wasn't enough. She wanted freedom. Real freedom. Then came the invitation, an all-expenses-paid trip to the Bahamas, private villas, exclusive parties, money, luxury, status, the kind of life she had always wanted. One problem: Ariana. She could have found someone to watch her, a friend, a family member. But that would mean responsibility, explanations, guilt. So instead, she locked the door. She walked away. And she never looked back. What makes a man powerful? Money, status, or the illusion that he is untouchable? For Jalen Cash Dupree, power wasn't just about wealth, it was about perception. At just 23, he was already a legend, a king in a world of illusion. Women wanted him. Men envied him. On Instagram, he was unstoppable. Stacks of $100 bills on penthouse balconies, a different supercar every week, VIP sections, exclusive watches, entourages. His motto was simple: If you ain't living fast, you ain't living. But what most people didn't know? Everything he had was stolen. The making of a scammer. Jalen was born in Detroit, but Detroit was never home. His mother worked double shifts just to keep the lights on, but the bills never stopped piling up. The struggle was real, and Jalen made a promise to himself: I will never be broke again. By 13, he had already cracked the system. It started small, stealing credit card numbers, flipping stolen sneakers, selling fake electronics. But Jalen wasn't like the others. He was smart. He learned fast. And soon, he was running a game that no one could trace. Money wasn't just power, it was freedom. And by the time he turned 17, he had mastered the art of taking it without consequence. Credit fraud, identity theft, stolen bank credentials. Jalen Cash Dupree wasn't just another scammer. He was a mastermind in the making. At 19, Jalen left Detroit and moved to Miami. Not for a fresh start, but for a bigger opportunity. Miami was a city built on wealth, excess, and secrets. A place where the rich hid their sins and scammers thrived. He met the right people, learned the right tricks, and before long, he was running an empire. Fake businesses, fraudulent loans, stolen identities. This wasn't petty crime anymore. This was organized financial fraud on a national scale. Jalen wasn't making thousands. He was making millions. And he spent it like it would never run out. Luxury hotels, the finest jewelry, exotic cars, designer everything. To the world, he was a self-made boss. To the FBI, a ghost. But what Jalen didn't know? The feds were already watching. They had been tracking him for months, monitoring his money trails, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But Jalen was too busy living fast to see what was coming. The woman who wanted. Monique Caldwell had spent her entire life chasing luxury. When she saw Jalen's Instagram, she knew instantly, this is the life I want. She wasn't looking for love. She was looking for access. The money, the power, the way he spent without care. She wanted in. She studied his page. The women around him were flawless, carefree, untouched by struggle. They didn't stress about rent. They didn't worry about bills. They lived in a world of wealth, power, and indulgence. Monique wanted that world for herself. She didn't hesitate. She messaged him. You got a spot for me? Most women played the waiting game. Not Monique. She knew what she wanted. And Jalen? He liked women who were bold. She was beautiful, confident, hungry. She fit the image. And for Jalen, image was everything. But Monique never told him the truth. She never mentioned the one thing that could ruin everything. Her daughter. Ariana, 2 years old, completely dependent on her. But in Monique's mind, Ariana didn't fit into this world. Jalen was the future. Ariana was the past. She wasn't about to lose her shot at luxury over something as inconvenient as a child, so she stayed silent. She pretended to be like every other woman in his circle, free, available, without baggage. And when Jalen invited her to Hawaii, she didn't hesitate. She booked her flight, packed her bags, and never looked back. March 9th, 2024. The invitation that changed everything. A notification lit up Monique's phone. Jalen Dupree. The man she had been watching for weeks. The one who lived the life she wanted. Come to Hawaii with me. She didn't hesitate. She didn't ask how long. Didn't ask why. Didn't ask what the occasion was. The only thing that mattered? He asked. Her fingers moved fast when his reply came. Tomorrow. She didn't need time to think. No excuses. She was going. First-class flights, private yachts, designer shopping. The kind of trip she'd only seen in influencer vlogs. That night, she carefully picked out her outfits, scrolling Instagram for inspiration. Which bikini would get the most likes? Which dress would make her look expensive? She laid out her best heels, her favorite wig, her designer perfume. She lined up makeup palettes she barely used. Everything had to be perfect. Not once did she stop to think about her daughter. For a moment, a brief moment, the thought crossed her mind. What about Ariana? But it wasn't concern, more like an inconvenience. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her suitcase, weighing her options. She could drop Ariana off with a friend, but that meant questions. That meant judgment. That meant hearing what she didn't want to hear. You're irresponsible. You need to grow up. She hated being questioned. She hated being reminded of reality. So she convinced herself, I'll just leave some food. She'll be fine. She walked into the kitchen, grabbed a baby bottle, and filled it with milk. She placed it near Ariana's crib. That was enough, right? A 2-year-old didn't eat much. She wiped her hands on her dress. Problem solved. March 10th, 2024. 6 a.m. The sun had barely risen. The world outside was quiet. Monique stood at the door, her suitcase beside her. The Uber was on its way. Behind her, in the dim apartment, Ariana was awake. She wasn't crying, wasn't fussing, just watching. Tiny fingers gripping the crib rail, wide brown eyes locked on her mother. She didn't understand, but she knew her mother was leaving. Monique checked her lipstick in the mirror, made sure she looked perfect. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't check to see if there was enough food. She didn't even look back. She stepped outside, pulled the door shut, and walked away. She never stopped to think how long 6 days really was. 2 years old, alone, no food, no water, no warmth, no comfort. A child, trapped. 6 days, and no one knew. No one came. The dream life. At what cost? Monique stepped off the plane into paradise. The warm Hawaiian breeze kissed her skin as she walked through the private terminal. A black SUV waited. Jalen stood by the car, chains glistening in the morning sun. The driver, dressed in a crisp suit, opened the door. She climbed in. This was it. The ride to the hotel felt unreal. Towering palm trees, endless ocean. She had made it. No responsibilities, no stress, no Ariana. They pulled up to a 5-star resort, a private suite, floor-to-ceiling windows, a balcony overlooking the ocean, champagne on ice. That night, the party started. VIP sections, champagne flowing, flashing lights, luxury everywhere. Monique posed for pictures, picked the best angles, chose the best filters, living her best life. While back home, her daughter was dying. Filters, luxury, blessed, VIP vacations. She soaked in the attention, danced on couches, let strangers pour drinks into her mouth. She had never felt more alive. March 11th, 2024. Day 2. The morning began with room service and expensive gifts. Jalen tossed a stack of cash onto the bed. Go crazy, he said, and she did. High-end boutiques, designer bags, diamond jewelry. For the first time in her life, she didn't have to check price tags. She walked out carrying thousands of dollars in luxury, feeling like she belonged in this world. That night, another club, another VIP section, another endless round of drinks. She leaned into Jalen, laughing as he whispered in her ear, this was her life now. Not once did she think about her daughter. March 12th, 2024, Day 3. A yacht party, the kind she had only seen in music videos. Private dock, massive white yacht, crystal clear waters stretching for miles. She stepped onto the deck, champagne already in hand, the sun setting behind her. The music pulsed through the speakers. Jalen sat back, surrounded by beautiful women, laughing like a king. She danced, let the music take her, let the alcohol wash away reality. She hadn't checked her phone, hadn't sent a single message, hadn't thought about the child she left behind. March 13th, 2024. Day 4. More shopping, more partying, more luxury. The nights blurred together, different places, same drinks, same faces. Jalen was on his phone more. Private conversations, shorter answers. Something felt off. But she didn't ask. She didn't care. As long as the money kept flowing, the lifestyle kept going. March 14th, 2024, Day 5. The energy shifted. Jalen seemed restless, distracted. He wasn't flashing as much money. He was watching the doors, taking calls in hushed tones. Monique ignored it. It wasn't her problem. That night, she scrolled through pictures of herself, choosing the best ones for Instagram. Not once did she wonder what was happening back home. While her daughter starved, she was sipping cocktails. While her daughter lay alone in the dark, she was soaking in a bubble bath. Ariana didn't exist in this world. March 15th, 2024. Day 6. Loud banging on the hotel suite door. Then, chaos. Doors burst open. Men in suits, guns drawn, shouting orders. FBI! Before Monique could react, hands wrenched behind her back, cuffs tightened around her wrists. She was yanked to her feet, breath coming in sharp gasps, heart hammering against her ribs. She turned, eyes darting toward Jalen. Expression blank. He didn't fight, didn't panic. Like he had been expecting this. She screamed, twisting against the agents. "I didn't do anything! I'm not part of this!" They didn't care. Dragged into the hallway, reality crashing down. And then, in a flash, she thought of her phone. Then, she thought of her life. And then, she remembered Ariana. A sharp, sinking horror filled her stomach. "I have a baby," she blurted, voice cracking. "I have a baby. I need to go back to my baby." The detective closest to her froze. "How old?" Her breath hitched. "Less than 3, she whispered. The room went still. "Where is she?" Her lips trembled. "At home." "With who?" Silence. "Who is watching her?" She couldn't answer. The detective's expression darkened. "How long have you been gone?" She swallowed hard. 6 days. A heavy pause. The detective blinked, as if trying to process the impossible. Who has been feeding her? No response. Who has been changing her? No response. The detective exhaled sharply. A child. Alone. For 6 days. He pulled out his phone. "Get a unit to that address. Now." March 15th, 2024, 6:30 a.m. Atlanta PD. Urgent call. "We have a 2-year-old abandoned in an apartment. Mother's been gone for 6 days." Across the country, officers raced toward a quiet apartment complex. Neighbors had been uneasy. "I haven't seen the mother in almost a week. I thought the crying stopped because someone came back." They knocked. No answer. They called out. Silence. Decision made. They forced entry. The stench hit them first. Rotting food, stale air, the smell of decay. The living room was eerily still, toys scattered, a sippy cup knocked over. And then they saw her, a small, curled-up body on the floor. 2 years old, still. A half-empty bottle beside her, a diaper unchanged for days. An officer crouched down, pressed 2 fingers to her wrist. Silence. The neighbor gasped. "Oh my God! Oh my God!" A radio crackled. "We need paramedics, now." But in their hearts, they already knew. It was too late. March 15th, 2024, 9 a.m. interrogation room. Monique in cuffs, face streaked with tears. "I didn't mean for this to happen. It wasn't supposed to be this way." The detective leaned in, his voice ice cold. "You left a 2-year-old alone for 6 days." She shook her head violently. "She had food." The detective's jaw clenched. "A bottle of milk? That's what you left her with?" She sobbed. Denial, regret, realization. But it didn't matter anymore. September 5th, 2024. The trial. The courtroom was silent. The prosecutor faced the jury. This was not an accident. This was a choice. Receipts. Evidence. Instagram photos. While she was in paradise, her daughter was dying in a dark apartment. The jury flinched. Monique sat motionless. Whether it was regret or just the realization she couldn't escape this, no one knew. "Now I ask you, what kind of mother makes this choice?" The prosecutor rose from his seat, exhaling sharply, shaking his head. "Help?" He let the word hang in the air. Where was that concern when she was boarding that plane? When she was swiping stolen money? When she was laughing on a yacht while her baby was dying? He turned back to the jury, his voice steady but cold. "Postpartum depression doesn't make you buy designer bags. It doesn't make you party for 6 days straight without checking in once. Zahara Whitfield is not a victim. The only victim in this case is the little girl she left behind. Silence. Heavy. Unshakable. No one looked at Zahara. Jury members shifted in their seats, their expressions tight, their eyes downcast. The weight of what they had just heard was undeniable. No sympathy. No mercy. She deserves everything coming to her. The community had already judged her. Now, the law was about to do the same. September 22nd, 2024. Sentencing day. The courtroom was still as the judge entered. Zahara sat stiffly, her hands cuffed, her eyes swollen from nights without sleep. She hadn't spoken since the verdict. It had taken the jury only 2 hours to find her guilty. The judge adjusted his glasses, voice firm. Final. Zahara Whitfield, for the abandonment and neglect leading to the death of your child, you are sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A sharp cry tore through the courtroom. Zahara collapsed forward, sobbing, gasping for air. Her shoulders shook violently as reality crushed her. No more luxury, no more parties, no more running away. Only 4 walls. Only regret. Only time. The judge turned his gaze toward Jalen Dupree, who sat expressionless beside his attorney. Jalen Dupree, for your involvement in high-level fraud schemes, you are sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Jalen didn't react. No breakdown. No words. He simply nodded, as if he had already accepted his fate. The judge's gavel slammed. It was over. Justice or consequence. As Zahara was led out of the courtroom, shackles on her wrists, one final question remained. Was justice served? Did she deserve life in prison? Or was this simply the cost of the choices she made? Who was Zahara Whitfield really? A cold-hearted woman who abandoned her child without remorse? Or just another lost soul, desperate to escape the life she was born into? She grew up without stability, shuffled between foster homes, always longing for something more. She wanted luxury, attention, power, a life where struggle didn't exist. But wanting to escape a painful past doesn't justify the choices she made. A mother's first duty is to protect her child. And she failed. The ones left behind. How many children suffer like Ariana? How many are left alone in empty apartments while their mothers chase something else? How many are neglected, forgotten, discarded? The signs are always there. A neighbor hears cries, but ignores them. A child left in a stroller for hours, overlooked. A little one, hungry, desperate for attention. But no one steps in. How often do we assume someone else will handle it? Zahara wasn't the first mother to abandon her child, and she won't be the last. But did she ever think it would end this way? Did she ever imagine that the life she chased so desperately would lead her here? In the end, she got exactly what she wanted, an escape. But it wasn't in a luxury hotel. It wasn't on a yacht. It wasn't in the arms of a wealthy man. It was behind bars, alone, with nothing but time to think about what she had done. A question for you. If this story made you think, if it made you feel something, don't just walk away. Stories like this happen more often than we realize. Innocent lives are lost because of neglect, because of selfishness, because of the failure to act. Now I ask you, could you ever leave your child behind? Could you ever go 6 days without checking in? If you heard a child crying next door, would you call for help? Or would you assume everything was fine? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if you want more real stories that make you think, more cases that expose the truth about human nature, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching.